I'm the host of this podcast. Pioneer Project started out to be as one of those projects that's very near and dear to me because I always aspire to be with that 0 to 1 journey, and I also wanted to experience the best version of it. And guess what? On this way of exploring myself towards that journey, I got to know that one of my friend is a product manager who has seen a lot of 0 to 1 in different industries as well, and it's Anup BS. And I really wanted to understand that what does it really take to do that 0 to 1 journey. And as a product management, there's a lot of stakeholdership that goes behind. There's a lot of uh, vision management and vision management, as well as a lot of alignment that you have to do with respect to the organization as well. So let's talk about those aspects, which is going to talk about that 0 to 1 journey, and also cover a lot about what is the readiness that you need to have when you are going to that 0 to 1 journey. And thank you so much, Anu, for being on the show. Means a lot.
Hey, thanks, Vishwas. Pleasure being here.
All right, so let's start with your journey as a product manager. Of course, it's years of experience that you have carried for now, but let's summarize it in a short span of time, and let's talk about what it took Anu BS to be a product manager that I'm aspiring to be.
Sure, Vishwas. So, um, like most people in India, right, I started with engineering. I graduated with an electronics and communications degree. And unlike a lot of people, I actually worked in software development. And this was on embedded systems. I built video streaming products for 4 years. And as part of this, this was early 2010s when the concept of product management was not mainstream, right? And while being an engineer, my company had this concept of product champion, right? And this person owned the product, defined it, and also implemented it as an engineer, right? And while I was doing this, I didn't know that I was actually doing product management, right? Uh, and post this, I wanted to be more on the business side of, so I pursued an MBA, and after that, I moved into formal product management, right? From video streaming and being an engineer, I moved into fintech, and this was with a US based company in fintech. It is called Yodlee. They were one of the pioneers in account aggregation. And I built 0 to 1 personal finance applications there, right? And this was a B2B SaaS product, right? But used by consumers. So it falls under an area called B2B2C, right? And that's where I learned my ropes of product building 0 to 1 products. After Yodlee, I moved into a Japanese e-commerce company from West moving east, from US company to Japan. Uh, there, I got to work on a mix of products. Initially started in fintech, but later moved on to data and AI, and that was my second attempt at a 0 to 1 journey. I built ML platform for Rakuten, and Rakuten had a team of 500 plus people in data scientists, engineers, data science consultants, and so on. After this, I wanted to experience what it's to be in an Indian startup. So I worked with Pine Labs in building payment platforms. This was actually not a 0 to 1, but more like a 1 to N journey, taking an existing product and taking it to the next level. And after Pine Labs, I'm currently back to building AI products at Opportune. Opportune is again sort of a 1 to N sort of journey, but there are elements of 0 to 1 here. So that in a nutshell,
Sure.
in my experience, for sure.
Sure. I think this is great. This is great. Let's get it started. So I just wanted to understand like what should be the readiness that anybody need to have in a product management or the product development when they are doing 0 to 1, because I've seen people from different walks of life come in and they start brainstorming, but there has to be one alignment for sure. As a product manager, you need to align everybody in one goal and one agenda, one vision and one mission statement. So let's talk about the readiness that we need to have when we are doing 0 to 1 journey.
Sure. So the thing about 0 to 1 journeys, right, is a lot of absence of process you are new to the team, and you also don't have too much sense of, let's say, who your customers are. So your entire journey begins with uncertainty. So as a product manager, the basic skill you will need to have is handling ambiguity and uncertainty, right? While, yeah, there are a lot of concepts of, how do you understand the market, etc., that is coming in. As a person, the skill you need to have is being comfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity, right? And in your early days, you're trying to understand who are your customers and what is your customer behavior, right? uh, that while that is happening on the external front, on the internal front, you're also trying to figure out your team, right? Who are your fellow product managers that you're going to work with? Who is your engineering team you're going to work with to build your product? Your research team, if you're building especially something which is a consumer facing a product, right? And a whole host of other teams like operations, marketing, support teams, and so on. So you're trying to figure all of this out, rallying this team to kind of identify, okay, how am I going to build this product? Well, that's happening on the internal front. On the external front, you're trying to do a lot of user research. You're identifying customers, you're floating surveys, doing focus discussions, right? And focus group discussions, which is with a group of customers, as well as you're doing depth discussions, which is going in depth with one or two, or maybe even 15 to 20 users, trying to understand what are their habits, what are their behaviors, and how can you introduce your product to these users. So that is the sort of initial challenges that you will have when you're building a 0 to 1 Vishwas.
Cool. I think the initial challenges are absolutely fine, but eventually there is always a stakeholder management that is coming up with. And guess what? It's not just that PRD which is just going to flow through the team and they're going to do it, but there has to be multiple stakeholders who has to be assigned where there has to be a lot of processes that has to go on. So let's talk about stakeholder management and let's talk about an evolving organization. How should they be ready for that 0 to 1, whether it's a product 0 to 1 or it's the technology 0 to 1?
Sure. Yeah. So what I was describing to you, right, was more of, let us say, you're building up something from scratch, and almost like a new team that you're creating, or a new startup that you're going to build, right? If you're looking at doing this in a company which already exists, and you're going to build your new product line, right? A lot of, like I said, a bunch of these stakeholders, you're trying to set up one-on-one meetings with them, trying to they'll have a lot of organizational context as well, right? And they come with their own sort of preferences and biases and their own understanding of how to do things, right? And this is where, as a product manager, when you're doing that 0 to 1, you need to bring everybody pretty much on board, right? And I can give you an example of Pine Labs, which I've seen sort of work very well. Is we had this concept of workshops, right? And we were people spread across multiple cities in India, like 4 or 5 different cities. What we would do when we are kicking off some of these initiatives is bring everybody into the room, right? Different stakeholders, and you have like a 2 3 day workshop where you're getting everybody on the same page. You as a product manager, you're kind of presenting your analysis and your research, and in addition to get inputs from everybody else, you're doing that sort of workshop environment where you're having a lot of face to face, and you're locked up in a room, right? You have to face each other for the next 2 to 3 days, and one of my leaders used to say, we are not getting out of this room until we have alignment across everybody else, right? So that's the sort of stakeholder management you need to have, and I've seen that sort of thing work where everybody feels that ownership after the session is done.
Sure. I think this is the podcast that I'm going to share with all my other org that I'm being part of right now. I'm going to tell them you either get aligned to whatever we are trying to pitch in, or else you are not moving out of the group. I think I'll have to do that. Yeah.
And it's not just what you are pitching, sort of thing, right? It's sort of a collective responsibility. Once you put people in a room for
Hmm.
2 3 days, right? What happens is everybody organically contributes and they start feeling that ownership, right? That is very key, that everybody gets to feel that ownership, uh, right? And when you do this sort of workshop, it's not just the product person or product manager or even your execs who are sort of owning this, right? It's the team which is owning this, and you need to get that sense of team. That's critical.
All right, the sense of team is very critical, but let's talk about one more thing. Aligning org is very tough. Of course, peers are with you, it's always happening, but people in the boardroom also need to understand that there is something that is going at a stake, and I'm firefighting for hundreds of things. And probably somewhere down the line, it's always miscommunication that happens between people, right? It's either because communication is the biggest bridge here, like the people who are executing to the people who are making the decision, there is always a bridge that we have to create. So let's talk about creating that communication and the culture of communication, as well as the culture of pragmatic leadership that is there within everybody, so that they define their purposes. So I was talking to Pallab, and he told there is always a purpose in my organization. I'm always aligning my organization for top three things that you are supposed to do right now, and that's going to be organizationally very good for everybody. What is that? So there is always that bridge that we have to create over a course of time. So let's talk about the communication. How can we bring it? And this is not generally a generic product management thing. Like, I'm still learning it, I'm still evolving there, but I want to know your persona about the product management and the communication skill that is required.
Sure. So, communication skill is probably, after, uh, like I said, handling ambiguity, handling uncertainty, which I would put under, let's say, also a bit of resilience. Communication is that second most important skill that is critical for a product person, right? And like I said, you have that initial session where you're sort of aligning, everybody and getting that shared ownership. Let's say that's your sort of post kickoff meeting. The next things that you do is sort of set some processes as well, right? There are a couple of communication aspects that are critical, right? One is what happens in your regular meetings, catch ups, etc. And second is your periodic sort of communication with the team, right? And this is where a sort of what I've seen termed governance becomes very critical. And what governance is essentially having those periodic catch ups and reports or your meeting minutes sent across to all your stakeholders who are critical, right? So you would have I'm talking about, let's say, just a medium sized org where your execs are probably not in all your discussions, right? It's your product team. When I say product team, it includes product engineering and other stakeholders who are there running it. It is critical for you to meet at least once a week, right? Sort of update what's happening, what is your alignment, etc., to everybody else. And your product and engineering counterparts, it is critical to meet at least the leadership, right? The ones who are hands on this. It's critical to meet every alternate day, if not more, right? Obviously, your team which is implementing is meeting much at a higher frequency. The next part is your weekly, whatever is your minutes and updates that you have and statuses that you have. Keep your execs in loop, right? And have presentations to your execs at least a monthly frequency. And if you are actually working on something which is even more critical and you're working at a critical stage, double down, right? Maybe bring in your execs much faster as well.
Hmm.
Right. So there are, like I said, two aspects of communication. One is your interpersonal part. The second is in terms of all your updates, etc., that you're sending across, and you need to have those different cadences set up with everybody. It's a sort of governance, right?
Got it. I think I got a comment from somebody about the communication. He's just seeing it on the LinkedIn, and he told me on my WhatsApp that, man, I always try to BCC my CEOs in the
Don't BCC on everything.
and he talked about the same thing here. So yeah, that's where I started laughing. I'm like, dude, you should not BCC. If I was your CEO, I would be bombarded with hundreds of things.
Exactly.
So yeah. So let's talk about a last pointer, all right? So today when we go out in the product management, PRD is good. ERD is something that I have been writing for a long time. There are so many things like there are always a missing piece of puzzle. Documentation is very tough. When it's 0 to 1, people say like, "Arey, yaar, let's implement, let's document. We've implemented this one, let's scale this one, then we'll document everything." I think the culture of documentation is also not there. So that is one thing, and the other thing is there are so many scattered pieces that you come up with something which is new, right? So let's say there's a new organization that I join and everything is scattered, and for a week I will be like, where are the PRDs, where are the ERDs, what is the implementation, where is the repository access for everything? And I'm confused to a max that where are we going through. And it's so frustrating sometimes that I'm like, damn, man, it's so frustrating most of the times that if you don't find any PRDs or ERDs. So let's talk about the culture of documentation and alignment of the new joiners who join your team or something like that, and also talk about like how what's your approach when you reach a new organization which is going through that 0 to 1. Like let's talk about that.
Sure. See, when you're a new person who's joining an existing team and you need to drive a particular product, right? What becomes critical is for you to have a sense of 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? What will you do in your first 30 days, first 60 and 90 days, right? And typically your first 30 days is focused on, yes, reading documentation, but as a product manager, the critical part is also meeting all your understanding who your stakeholders are, and sort of having conversations one-to-ones with all your stakeholders, at least doing a hi hello, right? So right now, I'm actually in my just started my second month at my new org. What I've done during my initial 30 days is sort of drafted a template message saying, "Hey, I joined in newly under such and such a team. Uh, want to drop in here and say a hello." And what I've seen is people react to you and say, "Hey, welcome to the org, and look forward to catching up." Right? That's typically your first message that you send across to somebody, and then you sort of set up a meeting and try to understand from them, get the context. And I want to quote this thing, right? And this is something I've seen happen when you speak to these people. What you discover is there's a nice, interesting Kannada movie called Ulidavaru Kandante, which is perspectives from the rest, right? Oh, you will get massively different perspectives from everybody that you talk to. It's like a dozen blind people trying to describe an elephant by touching it, right? Now you are listening to all these people, and you need to make sure what you're drawing is the right elephant to get the correct picture. That's what you do typically in your initial 30 to 45 days. And 60 to 90 days, what you're doing is, bases all these conversations, you're understanding what is critical for the product that you're going to build, and start defining your vision and roadmap, right? So, and in the process, if you get documents, great, right? But if you don't, yeah, have more conversations with these people, create your own documentation, right? Yeah, having those documents or videos, people find it doing videos easier compared to writing. I mean, think of it, right? We're doing this discussion on LinkedIn versus writing a massive medium blog post or a LinkedIn post. I think people find this conversation easier. So you will find some of those recordings as well. So yes, sometimes your PRDs and engineering requirement documents are critical, but then these conversations as well as recordings can also be massively helpful. So that's what you do in your initial 30 to 45 days.
Cool. I think this is something that is required for me because I'm that one guy who's starting the journey right now. And trust me, the journey is very tough. Journey is very tough. Just I just did a podcast yesterday in Elastic Office for Elastic for Startup series. It's an inaugural series. We talked about data platform being GenAI ready and all these things. The first thing that they told was either you can use an hammer to nail
Use the
for a
same
nail.
hammer for every nail, or if it's a screw, you don't need a
You
hammer.
don't need a hammer at the end of the day. So there's always that one persona that comes in. Yeah, where should we go in? What is our actual agenda of this entire meeting, or else what is the actual agenda of even building this product? Is it an open source thing that we just want to throw it out, or else is it something like going to get us the profit or in our what do you call the balance sheet? So there is always that one thing. So thank you so much, Anu, for this amazing insights. This is a friendship that we have from past 10-15 years. A lot of things has changed, a lot of things I have learned from him. I would love to call him on a series of sessions like this. I'm here to learn a lot. Of course, this is my first ever product management kind of a podcast that I did. Hopefully you guys like it. If not, just share me your feedbacks. I'll make sure that I chisel myself up and I'll be ready for the next podcast. Thank you so much, Anu. Thanks for this amazing podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Vishwas.
Sure. Let's end this stream, people. So this is Vishwas Nair signing off from this show. See you with a new podcast, a new episode, a new guest probably who's going to talk not just product technology, VC, you name it. We are here to cover it all in all. So thank you so much for